Close your eyes, and for a moment, think of someone. Picture them in your mind. Maybe it's the beloved shopkeeper in your neighborhood, the man who sweeps the front of his shop with his own hands every morning, gives candy to children with a smile, and often forgets the debts in his ledger. Or perhaps it's your child's teacher, Herr Schmidt, that idealistic educator who instills not just lessons, but also compassion and curiosity in his students, who speaks of each child's potential with shining eyes at parent-teacher conferences. Or maybe it's your family doctor, Dr. Weber, that trusted physician who answers your call even in the middle of the night, who listens to you before making a diagnosis, who warms the coldness of modern medicine with a human touch. These people, they are the cement of society. They are the calming faces of trust, of goodness, of ordinary life. Their very existence is the quiet proof that the world is still a place worth living in. Now, look at that same man, that same face again, but this time on a different stage. That shopkeeper, one night, is pasting a sign on his competitor's window, pointing them out. That teacher's hands don't tremble as he signs a petition reporting a student in his class for being different. That doctor averts his gaze as he shrugs off the patients now labeled untreatable. He is the person who signs an informant's letter. He is the silent supporter in a crowd roaring with hatred. He is one of the millions who, when their neighbors are taken away with broken down doors in the middle of the night, shuts his curtains tightly, telling himself the screams he hears are just the howling of the wind. How did this happen? How did this sharp transformation take place? Oh, the darkest valleys of history, the greatest tragedies. They weren't created by monsters with horns, capes, and demonic laughter. They were created by people just like us, ordinary people who read their newspaper at breakfast, worried about their children's future, and sat down for dinner with their families in the evening. So what happened to those good people, those pillars of society, that made them silent partners or active participants in inhuman acts? Did these people lose their moral compass overnight? Did they turn into monsters in an instant? Or was it a more sinister, a more slow-acting poison that transformed them? This isn't just a question about the past. This is a question that echoes in every moment, in every society. Bonhoeffer and the theory from a prison cell. The most unsettling answer to this question came from the heart of civilization, but during one of its darkest moments, from a prison cell. And the answer isn't the first suspect that comes to mind: evil. The answer is a much more common and much harder concept to grasp. According to Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a theologian, a resistance hero who went from being a pacifist pastor to a conspirator planning to assassinate Hitler, the true enemy of the good and of reason was something else entirely. He wrote with a shocking clarity, "Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice." Wait a minute. Stupidity. Doesn't that word seem to downplay the horror, to trivialize it? Are we really going to explain a regime that systematically exterminated millions, an industrial-scale genocide, with a word as almost childish as stupidity? According to Bonhoeffer, yes, because the stupidity he was talking about wasn't an intellectual weakness, an IQ issue, as we understand it. This was a moral collapse, a psychological surrender. It was so much more than an insult. It was a mental occupation. Bonhoeffer didn't develop this theory like an academic in an ivory tower. He did it as a prisoner in the hands of history's most brutal regime. As a man of peace, he had spoken out against what he called cheap grace, a passive faith that requires no responsibility, and instead championed costly grace, meaning the action and the price that faith demands. That's why he left his safe life in America and returned to his country, to the heart of the danger. And now, within the cold, damp walls of Tegel military prison, being interrogated every day, he was observing his theory in the flesh. One day, a new guard was assigned to his cell. A young man, barely in his 20s, from the countryside, shy, someone who would avert his eyes even as he greeted you. Bonhoeffer tried to see a spark in his eyes, a remnant of humanity. He tried to form a human connection with him. But as the weeks went by, he watched how the young man changed, or rather, how he was transformed. That shy boy was gone, and in his place was a soulless uniform that just followed orders to the letter, without question, without initiative. The spark in his eyes had been extinguished, replaced by a void. That guard wasn't an evil person. He had outsourced the act of thinking to someone else. It was in that moment that Bonhoeffer understood. The true power of the regime didn't come from demonic geniuses, but from millions of stupid people of this kind. Evil wasn't planned. It was widespread. And the name for this epidemic was stupidity. What stupidity is and what it isn't. So if this stupidity isn't about intelligence, then what is it exactly? It's the act of voluntarily surrendering your most precious asset, your own ability to reason, your capacity for critical thought, to the charisma of a leader, to the simple slogans of an ideology, or to the promise of belonging to a group. It is a forfeiture. It is the abdication of your mental sovereignty. Think of your mind as a sophisticated computer. Stupidity is the virus. It comes from the outside, looking incredibly appealing. It might be named something like the leader who knows everything.x or simplesolutions.vbs. This virus promises a cure for the mental exhaustion that comes from trying to understand a complex world. It says, don't think, just believe and relax. It doesn't feel like a surrender. You just click, I agree. The way we all do when we scroll past the terms and conditions without reading. And with that one simple click, the virus seeps into the deepest parts of the system. Because some ideas don't choose their owner. They just infect. There are three main symptoms of this mental occupation. First, absolute certainty. The person infected with the mental virus doesn't have doubts. Doubt is the healthiest sign of a thinking mind, but for stupidity, doubt is a weakness. For them, the world isn't complex and nuanced. It's black and white, us and them, friend and absolute enemy. Second, the rejection of facts. If a piece of evidence, a scientific fact or a real event contradicts their belief system, then the problem must be with the evidence. You can't fight the truth, but you can hide from it. And this mind sees the truth as a threat, neutralizing it by labeling it a conspiracy theory, a foreign plot, or the lies of traitors. Third, defense with anger. What happens when you try to argue logically with a person who's mentally occupied? They don't reconsider their ideas. Instead, they perceive it as a personal attack on their very existence and defend themselves with aggression. Because those ideas are no longer a tool they use, they have become a part of their identity. When you ask someone, why do you think that way? And they just stare back blankly. They aren't thinking. We can add a fourth symptom to this list, the inability to say, I don't know. Stupidity claims to have an answer for everything. It has no tolerance for uncertainty, because saying I don't know is the first step to starting to think. And the virus is there precisely to prevent that. Remember this, the greatest danger isn't false information. It's a mind that is ready to reject true information. Science has spoken. The experiments. Bonhoeffer's tragic observations in his cell were proven again and again in the post-war world, in sterile laboratory settings. These experiments shattered our optimistic assumption that humans are rational beings. Imagine the scene of the Milgram experiment. You're an ordinary citizen, paid to participate in a study. A serious-looking scientist in a white lab coat gives you the role of teacher. Your job is to deliver electric shocks of increasing levels to a learner in the next room for every wrong answer. At first, you hesitate. As the voltage rises, the screams and pleas from the next room get louder. You're sweating, you're questioning it. You're saying, we have to stop. But the authority figure in the white coat calmly says, "The experiment requires that you continue. We are responsible. Please go on." And 65% of people, that's 2 out of 3, continue to press the buttons all the way to the highest, potentially fatal voltage. Why? Because they outsource the responsibility and the act of thinking to that white coat. The Ash experiment revealed an even more insidious truth. You're brought into a room for a simple vision test. There are 3 lines on a screen, and you're asked which one is the same length as a reference line. The answer is obvious, but the other 7 people in the room, who are actually actors, all intentionally give the wrong answer before you. When it's your turn, a storm rages inside you. Your eyes are telling you one thing, but the entire group is saying something else. Am I crazy? Are they all wrong? Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. And a large majority of subjects, out of fear of being ostracized from the herd, deny the plain truth of their eyes are seeing and repeat the group's wrong answer. And the dunning-kruger effect gave a scientific name to Bonhoeffer's symptom of absolute certainty. This effect, in its simplest form, shows that the most incompetent and ignorant people on a topic are also deprived of the ability to realize their own incompetence. Sometimes, ignorance speaks the loudest because its confidence comes from that very ignorance. But the real danger is the other side of the coin. Genuinely knowledgeable and competent people are often aware of how little they know, and so they suffer from imposter syndrome. This creates a vacuum in the public sphere, where the wise are silent with doubt, the ignorant shout with boldness. These experiments show us the 3 main gateways through which the virus of stupidity infiltrates our minds. Blind obedience to authority, the pressure to conform to the group, and the bold confidence that comes from ignorance. The algorithm's game. Today, these 3 gateways are more wide open than ever before, and the virus that enters through them has undergone a terrifying mutation in the digital age. In Bonhoeffer's time, propaganda was spread through radios and mass rallies. It gave the same message to everyone. Today, we all carry a personalized propaganda machine in our pockets. The goal of social media algorithms is not to enlighten or inform you. They have only one goal: to keep your attention on the screen for as long as possible. And the most effective way to do that is to serve you content that will elicit the strongest emotional reaction: affirmation, belonging, and especially anger. The algorithm learns what makes you angry better than you do, and it continuously offers you new reasons to be angry. The result is a modern mental ghetto, the filter bubble, a digital room completely cleansed of opposing views, where only the echo of your own beliefs is repeated thousands of times. We call this algorithmic stupidity. In this new form, we no longer seek facts. We seek evidence that confirms our own reality. We don't expose ourselves to different ideas to test our own thinking. We find that 5th article, that 10th video that supports our opinion, and we feel relieved. The algorithm starts to act like an external brain that thinks for us. It decides what's important, who to be angry at, what's true. We slowly cede our mental sovereignty, our intellectual independence to it. You surrendered your mind, and you didn't even notice. You're no longer an individual, you're a data point. Your outrage is just another signal that determines the next piece of content. Why power fears thought? So why does this virus spread so easily? Why don't societies develop an immunity to this mental pandemic? Because all forms of power, by their very nature, love stupidity. And don't just think of power here as governments. It's the boss in a company. It's the popular person in a social group. It's even the dominant character in a family. Power wants predictability and control. And a mind that thinks, that questions, that doubts, is the hardest thing to control, the most unpredictable. Whereas a mind that has outsourced the act of thinking is power's most loyal and useful tool. Hannah Arendt's concept of the banality of evil runs parallel to Bonhoeffer's theory. While observing the trial of the Nazi officer Adolf Eichmann, Arendt realized he wasn't a monster, but a terrifyingly normal, thought-deficient bureaucrat. Eichmann's crime wasn't hatred, it was thoughtlessness. He was just an official, following orders, doing his job. This is the type of person power loves. Power doesn't need evil people. It needs thoughtless people. Because a thoughtless person becomes a cog in the machine, ready to implement any order, any policy, without question. The goal isn't malice, it's frictionless control. Remember, if you aren't thinking, someone who's thinking is making decisions for you, and their interests are probably not the same as yours. 3 antidotes to the virus. Is there a way out of such a dark picture? Is there a vaccine, a cure for this mental virus? According to Bonhoeffer, yes, but the solution doesn't come from the outside, through a law or an educational reform. The solution's radically personal and can be summed up in one word: liberation. This is a mental revolution. It is the decision of an individual to take back control of their own mind. It is the act of saying, "My thoughts belong to me, and I will not cede them to anyone." This is not an easy path. It requires leaving the comfort of the bubble, risking the loneliness of breaking away from the herd, and learning to swim in the unsettling waters of doubt and uncertainty. There are 3 practical, strategic steps you can take on this path to inner freedom. The belief audit, mental archaeology. This isn't just asking, "Why do I believe this?" It's digging through the layers of your own mind like an archaeologist. Take a political or social idea you hold most passionately. Stop and ask, where, when, and from whom did I get this idea? What was my state of mind when I first heard it? What evidence have I gathered to support this belief? And what counter-evidence have I ignored? Is this belief serving me, or am I serving it? This honest inquiry is like a mental checkup. Breaking the echo chamber, intellectual sparring. This isn't about insulting someone with an opposing view or pretending to listen. It's about deliberately reading a well-written, respected book that contradicts your own view. It's about following someone you disagree with, but who argues their points intelligently. The goal isn't to be convinced or to fight. The goal is to strengthen your own arguments by exposing them to resistance, like a boxer training with a sparring partner. This is the only way you can see the weak spots, the blind spots, in your own thinking. The no-share reflex, digital citizenship. When you see that news story, that headline on social media that makes you furious, that makes you want to shout, "This is it. Everyone needs to see this." Just pause for 10 seconds before you hit the share button. This simple pause is a fuse that you place between your emotional reaction and your rational thought. Ask yourself, is the source of this reliable? Have I read the full story? By sharing this, am I contributing to a dialogue or just to more hatred and polarization? Remember, every click of the shares button is a vote for the kind of information world you want to live in. Bonhoeffer was silenced, but his ideas live on. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was executed at dawn on April 9, 1945, in the Flossenbürg concentration camp, just weeks before the war ended. The regime physically silenced his voice. They thought they had eliminated him as a member of the resistance, but perhaps they never understood that the real danger was not his actions, but his ideas. And those ideas are more alive and more dangerous than ever among us today. Today, this virus is not the monopoly of a particular political view, community, or country. It's on the right and it's on the left. It's among the religious and it's among the atheists. It's among the educated and it's among the uneducated. Because this isn't a matter of ideology, it's a matter of a way of thinking. Now the question comes to you, in all its nakedness, how free are you? Those most passionate beliefs of yours, those most unshakable truths, those clearest enemies. Do they really belong to you? Or are they the products of a virus you once agreed to, without ever reading the terms and conditions? If this question made you uncomfortable, if you felt a sting somewhere inside, That's a good sign, because it means that your mind might still be your own, that you still have a chance to reclaim the sovereignty. The first step you take, the first thought you think after this video ends. If it belongs to you, then we've won, because thinking is dangerous, but not thinking is fatal.